The hunt begins. No one on the alien team had ever seen fear on Lyra's face until today. The skies above planet Therax were dark with thick red clouds. The air smelled of blood. Something had gone wrong in the deep jungle, and the message was clear. A sandmaw had awakened. Lyra was a top xenobiologist from the Verine species. She had studied hundreds of creatures across the galaxy, but the sandmaw was different. It was not just a predator. It was a legend. It moved silently, struck without warning, and left nothing behind but bones and torn metal. Many called it the Beast of Ends. Lyra stood near the research outpost as alarms screamed across the camp. Workers ran. Security bots tried to form a line. But deep inside, Lyra knew they had no chance. Sandmaws didn't hunt for food. They hunted for sport. Even the bravest warriors of her kind stayed far from this region. Suddenly, a human voice broke the panic. "I'll take care of it," the man said. Everyone turned. It was Commander Jack Rains, the only human assigned to their mission. Most thought he was there for diplomatic exchange. He hardly spoke. He trained in silence, ran alone into the wilderness each morning, and ate meals no one else touched. Many of the crew believed humans were just tough-skinned talkers with more stories than skills. But now, Jack was walking straight toward the jungle. "You'll die," Lyra said sharply, stepping in front of him. "That thing is not an animal. It's death itself." Jack paused. His eyes were calm, focused, almost bored. "Then I'll introduce myself." Lyra's breath caught in her throat. "You're not serious." "I am." The alien captain tried to stop him. "Human, we will lose you. Your death would be meaningless." Jack didn't even look back. "Only if I lose." With that, he stepped past the last energy shield and into the red jungle fog. Lyra stood still. The camp was silent now. Everyone expected to hear screams, bones cracking, or nothing at all. But something inside Lyra refused to believe this man was walking to his death. Her feet moved on their own. She grabbed a sensor drone and followed from a distance. She watched from the top of a ridge. Jack moved like he belonged to this world. No panic, no hesitation. He crouched near a tree, felt the soil, sniffed the air. And then, the silence broke. A roar ripped through the trees. Branches shattered. The ground shook. The sandmaw appeared, massive, armored, with 6 blood-stained limbs and a mouth filled with bone-saw teeth. Its red eyes locked onto Jack. It didn't wait. It charged. Lyra gasped. But Jack didn't run. He waited. At the last second, he spun to the side, dodging the first strike. The sandmaw's claws tore through trees like paper. Jack leapt onto its back. The drone tried to track the movements, but it was too fast. All Lyra could see was motion, flashes of limbs, fists, and fury. Then came the sound. Flesh tearing, bone snapping. The sandmaw screamed, a deep, terrible sound like thunder mixed with pain. Then silence. Lyra's heart pounded. Her hands trembled as she brought the drone closer. The red mist began to clear. And there he stood, Jack Rains, covered in blood, calm, breathing steady. Behind him, the body of the sandmaw lay in pieces, torn apart, shredded. Its head was ripped clean from the spine, and its limbs were scattered like broken toys. He turned toward the drone and gave a small nod. Lyra felt something she couldn't explain. It wasn't just shock. It wasn't fear. It was a feeling that shook her soul. For years, she believed her kind ruled the sciences of survival. But this human, this quiet, strange, powerful human, had just rewritten everything she knew. She whispered, "What are you?" Back at the camp, others were still waiting for news. When Jack returned, no one spoke. He simply said, "Problem solved," and walked away. But Lyra watched him with new eyes. Because in that moment, she knew one truth. He was not just a man. He was something far more dangerous. The predator roars. The human stands still. The story of what happened in the jungle spread fast, too fast. Everyone had a version. Some said the human used secret weapons. Others said he summoned lightning from his body. But Lyra knew the truth. She had seen it with her own eyes. No tools, no tricks, just strength, speed, and something else. Something darker. The camp had fallen silent since Jack's return. No one dared to speak to him. Even the guards avoided eye contact. But Lyra couldn't stay away. Something inside her burned with questions. So when she saw him sitting alone, outside the outpost, sharpening a blade he didn't even use in the fight, she walked toward him. You killed it with your hands, she said softly. Jack didn't stop sharpening. Yes. She sat beside him, her long legs folding awkwardly as she avoided looking directly at him. I've seen military videos. I've seen elite fighters. But nothing like that. Jack glanced at her, just briefly. Then you haven't seen war. The way humans have. Lyra hesitated. What kind of war creates someone like you? Jack didn't answer. Not at first. He finished with the blade, stood up, and tossed it into the sand. Then he pointed toward the jungle. Watch. Lyra followed his gaze. At first, she saw nothing. Then, slowly, the trees began to shake. The red fog returned. Another roar echoed, but this one was deeper, louder, and angrier. No, Lyra whispered. There's another one. Jack nodded once. They hunt in pairs. Panic broke out. Again in the camp. Alarms screamed. Guards scrambled. This time, no one volunteered. No one stepped forward, except Jack. He turned toward the edge of the camp, toward the roar that grew louder every second. But this time, Lyra grabbed his arm. Wait. Her voice was shaking, but her eyes were steady. You'll die if you go alone again. Jack looked at her hand, then at her face. I won't. Lyra didn't let go. Why do you keep doing this? You're not a god. You're not a weapon. You're just flesh and bone. Jack's voice was low, but firm. Exactly. Flesh and bone. Like them. That's why they need to. Fear us. He pulled his arm freed. As he walked away, Lyra whispered to herself. But I'm starting to fear you too. From the ridge again, Lyra watched. The jungle cracked open as something enormous stepped out. This sand maw was larger than the last. Its body was scarred, its tail thick with bone armor. It howled, shaking the cliffs, and charged. But Jack didn't move. Not even a twitch. He stood like a stone as the beast stormed toward him. For a second, Lyra thought he was frozen in fear. But then she noticed. His breathing was controlled. His legs were positioned just right. His eyes were locked onto the creature's throat. The beast leaped. So did Jack. They collided midair. Dust and blood filled the sky. Claws swiped. Fists struck. The ground broke beneath them. Trees crashed down like dominoes. It looked like the end, but then, out of the chaos, came silence, and from that silence came footsteps. Jack walked out slowly, dragging something heavy. It was the sand maw's severed jaw. Lyra's heart thudded against her chest. She had no words, because this time, the human hadn't just survived, he had sent a message. To every predator on the planet. To every alien who doubted his kind, and most of all, to her. Asterisk bones crack, flesh rips. They thought the first kill was a miracle. They thought the second was madness. But after the third, no one in the camp laughed at humans anymore. Point two sand maws, both apex predators, both legendary killers, lay in pieces outside the base. Not by weapon, not by trap, but by the bare hands of a single man, Jack Rains. And yet, he never celebrated, never smiled. He washed off the blood like it was dust, sat by the fire, and ate his food in silence. While others watched him from afar, Lyra couldn't look away. She had witnessed death before, but never like this. Never with so much control that he didn't just fight to survive. He fought like it was part of him. That night, she couldn't sleep. Images of Jack slamming the sand maw to the ground, tearing its jaw off, twisting its limbs. Those moments played again and again in her mind. But something else disturbed her more. The way he didn't seem angry, he didn't roar like the beast, he didn't celebrate like a warrior, he just ended it as if violence was normal. As if it was natural. The next day, Lyra approached him again. She found him sharpening his knife, another tool he hadn't even used yet. Why do you fight like that? She asked. Jack looked up. She continued. Most creatures attack with rage, with fear. But you were calm. You were quiet, even when you were killing. Jack looked toward the jungle. We were made that way, he said. Lyra frowned. What do you mean? He looked her in the eyes. Your kind evolved to learn. Others evolved to adapt. But humans? We evolved to end things. We weren't born on a peaceful planet. Every day, we had to fight to live. Not with tools. Not at first. With hands. With teeth. With pain. His voice didn't rise. But it made her skin crawl. Pain, she repeated. Jack nodded. It shaped us. Broke us. Then made us stronger. That's what humans are, survivors of suffering. Lyra sat beside him, carefully. But don't you feel anything? When you kill. Jack paused for a long time. Sometimes, he said finally. I feel sorry for them. Before she could reply, a warning cry echoed across the camp. Another life form. Big. Moving fast. Not a sandmaw. Something else. Jack stood. Lyra grabbed her gear, following without thinking. When they reached the eastern ridge, the ground was torn, scorched, and full of strange tracks. A new predator was coming. It looked like the sandmaw, but taller and wrapped in bone armor from head to tail. Lyra's scanner beeped. This isn't just a predator, she said. It's a sandlord. Jack didn't blink. Good. She looked at him in disbelief. Good? This thing eats sandmaws. It's at the top of the chain. Jack began walking forward. Asterisk. Lyra shouted. You can't beat it the same way. Jack stopped. Then I'll beat it my way. And with that, he stepped into the trees. Lyra followed from a distance, using her drone again. Her hands were sweaty. Her heart was racing. She saw the moment the sandlord rose. It towered over Jack like a god of the jungle. With a roar that split the sky, it charged. Jack didn't move. Again, until the last moment. He jumped, dodged, slid under its claws, grabbed its leg, climbed its back. Then the camera caught it, his hands around the beast's neck. And then, crack. The sound was brutal. The drone feed shook. The beast crashed into the ground. Silent. Broken. Lyra dropped her controls. She whispered, he's not just dangerous, he's unstoppable. Fear turns into curiosity for the first time in her life. Lyra couldn't decide if she was scared or fascinated. 3 monsters had fallen, one after the other. And each time, the human didn't just survive, he dominated. No weapons, no backup, no fear. The camp had changed. Jack's name was now spoken in whispers, not jokes. Even the high-ranking officers avoided giving him orders. Some transferred off-world, saying they weren't safe with that thing around. That's what they called him now, a thing. Not a man, not a soldier, just something unnatural. But Lyra didn't leave. She studied him. She followed his training sessions, secretly recorded his movements, analyzed the way he moved through the jungle like he owned it. It wasn't brute strength alone. There was rhythm, control, purpose. And when she asked questions, he answered them. Not with pride, not with ego, just truth. Why don't you use our weapons? She asked him one morning. Jack replied, because I don't need to. She pressed again. But you bleed. You bruise. You're just flesh like us. He looked at her, quiet for a moment. Flesh can be hardened. Pain is just a teacher. That line stuck with her. Pain is just a teacher. She began joining him. At first, just to watch. Then to mimic his movements. She fell. She got hurt. She bled. And each time she expected him to laugh or stop her, he didn't. He just waited until she got up again. One evening, her hands shaking, she finally asked, why are you letting me do this? I'm not human. He answered without hesitation. Doesn't matter. You want to understand. That's enough. It was strange. She'd met humans before, loud, arrogant, overconfident. But Jack was none of those things. He wasn't interested in proving anything to anyone. He didn't crave power or attention. He simply did what needed to be done. And that made him terrifying. But it also made her want to be near him. Not for protection, for truth. Because the galaxy had told her that humans were unpredictable, emotional, even dangerous. But no one ever told her they could be this composed, this deadly, and somehow still kind. Days passed. She trained harder. She asked more. Jack taught in few words, but his actions said everything. Every scar on his body told a story. Every motion was the result of something survived, something endured. One night, while they sat by the fire, she finally asked the question that had been haunting her. Jack, are you born this way? Or are you made? He stared into the flames for a long time. Then he said, we're all born weak. But pain, it teaches you to stop being weak. Lyra looked at her own hands. Soft, unscarred. She had spent her life behind glass, behind tech, behind theory. Now she wanted more. I want to feel what you feel, she whispered. Jack turned to her slowly. Then be ready to break. Because what made me didn't stop when it hurt. But Lyra didn't flinch. Because somewhere deep inside her, curiosity had burned away fear. And what remained was hunger. Hunger to change. Hunger to understand. Because now she wasn't just watching the human. She was walking his path. And soon, she would find out. If she could survive it, The secret of human evolution, the question haunted her. How can a species so soft win against monsters built to kill? Lyra had studied thousands of life forms, dissected predator behaviors, mapped evolution charts from every corner of the galaxy. But none of it explained Jack Rains. No data told her how muscle and bone could shatter creatures made of armor. No study explained how someone could walk calmly into death again and again, and return with blood on his fists and no fear in his eyes. So one day, she asked him directly, "What made you like this, Jack? What made humans so different?" Jack looked up from the fire, silent for a moment. Then he picked up a small piece of wood, tossed it into the flames, and said, "Our planet tried to kill us every day." Lyra waited. He continued, "We weren't the biggest, not the fastest, not the strongest, just scared little things with no claws, no fangs, and no armor. So we learned to think. We learned to hunt. And we learned to feel pain. And keep moving anyway." Lyra listened like a student. Jack pointed to his chest. "We didn't survive because we were built to. We survived because we refused to die." She was stunned by the simplicity of it. No secret formula. No enhanced DNA. Just, well, that night, Lyra opened the old Earth records from the ship database. She read about wars, famines, wild beasts, plagues. She saw old photos of human children walking through ruined cities, soldiers smiling with blood on their faces, mothers carrying babies across deserts of ash. Over and over again, she found the same thing. Humans didn't give up. They were never the rulers of their world. They took it, and the planet never forgave them for it. The next morning, Jack found her practicing again. This time, her palms were torn open, bleeding. But she kept going, punching the same wood post again and again. He stood beside her and said nothing. She finally stopped, breathing hard. "I want to learn more," she said. "I want to know what it's like to fight like you." Jack tilted his head. "You sure? Because the first lesson is simple. It's going to hurt." "I'm ready," she whispered. Jack nodded once. He taught her how to move, how to breathe, how to keep balance when your legs tremble. He showed her how to take a hit without panicking. Not just physically, but mentally. And every time she fell, he said the same thing: "Get up." And she did. Every single time. Soon, others began to notice. Not just the way Lyra fought, but the way she changed. She walked differently. She spoke with more strength. Even her body started to adapt. And though she was still alien in blood, her spirit was beginning to feel something very human. One evening, she looked at Jack and said, "Do you think I'll ever be like you?" He looked at her with an expression she hadn't seen before. Pride. "No," he said. "You'll be better." For the first time, she smiled. Because now she understood. Jack wasn't a freak of nature. He was a lesson. And Lyra was learning fast. Another beast awaits just when the camp dared to breathe again. The ground trembled with a new warning, a seismic pulse. Far deeper than before. Lyra was the first to feel it. Not just in her feet, but in her bones. She had been cataloging jungle vibrations for weeks now, learning to detect creatures before they appeared. But this was different. Heavier. Slower. Smarter. Jack felt it too. He stood up from sharpening his blade, his eyes narrowing. "It's not a predator," he said. "It's a hunter." Lyra looked up sharply. "A hunter?" He nodded. "There's a difference. Predators kill for survival. Hunters kill for purpose." Within minutes, alarms flared. The outpost sensors picked up a reading never seen before: Titan class. Life form, armored in adaptive plating, capable of heat camouflage, and possessing something horrifying: an actual strategy pattern in its movement. That Lyra's heart raced. This wasn't just another beast that IT was planning. Even Jack's jaw tightened when he read the scan. "That's not wild," he muttered. "That's war." The Alien Command Council decided to evacuate. Shuttles were prepped. Protocols were activated. But Lyra didn't pack. She walked straight to Jack. "If you go out there alone," she said, "I'm going with you." Jack raised an eyebrow. "You sure? I'm done being just a witness." For a long moment, he said nothing. Then, without smiling, he handed her a small Earth-made weapon. Not a gun, but a combat knife. "This won't save you," he said, "but it will remind you to fight." She took it. They left the camp together, disappearing into the jungle fog. What they found was something out of a nightmare. The creature stood twice the size of a sand lord, covered in jagged bone, its face hidden behind a mask of spiked plating. But it wasn't just the size, it was the silence. It didn't roar. It didn't charge. It watched. Then it moved. Fast. Too fast. Jack pushed Lyra aside and took the first strike, dodging, rolling, returning blows like he was born for this. But the beast didn't fall. It matched him move for move. It anticipated attacks. It learned as it fought. Lyra joined in. Her strikes weren't as powerful, but they were sharp, clean, practiced. She remembered his lessons. Don't hesitate. Don't think. Just move. Still, the beast didn't fall. Jack was bleeding. Lyra's arm was gashed open. For the first time since they met, she saw Jack falter. His stance broke. The beast raised a massive claw to finish him, and Lyra screamed. Not in fear, but in rage. She launched herself at the creature, slashing across its eye plate. The beast howled and stumbled back. It gave Jack just enough time. He struck one final blow to the exposed neck. The sound of the snap was like thunder. The jungle went still. The beast dropped. Jack collapsed to one knee, breathing hard. Lyra knelt beside him, her hand shaking. You okay? She asked. He coughed. Never better. And then, for the first time ever, he smiled. Lyra smiled back. They didn't speak another word as they walked back to camp, bloody, exhausted, but alive. But everyone who saw them return understood one thing. They had gone into the jaws of death and come back as something else. Together. *2 against the wild. The jungle no longer feared them. It recognized them. Word of what happened spread far beyond the outpost. Across comm channels, among alien diplomats, even on smuggler ships, whispers grew louder. The human and the alien girl who returned from death. They were no longer just a soldier and a scientist. They had become something more. They had become symbols. Back at the base, others watched them differently. Warriors from other species came to observe their training. Some mocked at first, until they saw the raw bruises on Lyra's arms and the steely calm in Jack's gaze. They didn't train for show. They trained for war. But Lyra noticed something else. Jack had changed, too. He laughed more, just a little. He talked more, but never about himself. And for the first time, he let someone walk beside him. Late one evening, they sat under the shattered hull of a wrecked drone ship, their new favorite spot. Lyra stared up at the stars. I used to think the galaxy was cold, she said. Full of monsters in the dark. Jack leaned back, arms crossed behind his head. It is. She looked at him and smiled. But now I think, maybe the monsters should be afraid too. He gave a quiet chuckle. That's very human of you. She paused. And what about you? Are you still just a weapon? Jack didn't answer right away. Then he said, no, not anymore. Before she could ask what he meant, a new signal pinged through the base, an emergency beacon from a nearby colony. Screams. Explosions. Something massive had arrived, something worse than anything on Therax. Everyone turned to Jack. But he didn't move. He turned to Lyra instead. Well, he asked, ready to teach the next one why we're feared. Lyra stood beside him, her grip tightening around her knife. Let's remind them, she said, what happens when they underestimate humans and those who choose to stand with them. The shuttle roared as it left the camp. Two figures inside, one born of fire and pain, the other remade in the same flame. And as the stars lit their path, the galaxy held its breath. Because now, it wasn't just one unstoppable force. It was two. And together, they weren't hunting monsters. They were warning them.